Hey, I'm Cameron. Thank you for tuning in to Mosaic. We're so glad you decided to watch today. You know, I encourage you, before we get started, I would love for you to text some friends, call some friends, Facebook some friends. I don't care what you do, but let's start a watch party. Invite them over, have some food. I don't care, talk. If you want a social distance, 6 feet, baby, come on, all right? And let's have a great time. And then once you're done, let's talk about it. Have a conversation. What'd you learn? What spoke to you? Ask some questions. All right, without further ado, let's jump in. Today, we're talking about being grateful.
When I was in college, I was an electrical engineering major for a while. I'm not sure why I did that, but I did. And one of the things I had to do was take several computer programming classes. Now we call it writing code. But one of the things that I learned being in those classes, and it was frustrating as all get out, was the computer would only do what I told it to do. It turned out that the computers actually did not operate the way that computers on Star Trek operated, and you could just tell them to do something and they would kind of figure out what you were doing. But whatever I typed in as code would be exactly what the computer did and nothing else. And so whatever I put into it was exactly what I got out of it. And in Proverbs chapter 4, Solomon says, he says, above all else, catch that part, right? Above all else, he says, guard your heart, for from it everything flows. And so what we've got to be careful about is what we're putting into our hearts. And for a lot of people, you know what we do is we put a lot of bitterness into our hearts. And you know, the easy thing to do is to be a bitter person. The better thing to do is to be a thankful person. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, about how gratitude changes your attitude. And because what you're putting into your heart is what flows out of you. But being a person who's full of gratitude and thanksgiving and looks at people in a grateful manner, that takes work. That's a lot of work, as a matter of fact. What's easy to do is to be a complainer. That's what's really easy to do. So let me give you a few tips on how you can be a better complainer so that you can have more bitterness in your heart and hopefully be a better grumbler. So here's how to get started on becoming a more bitter person. My first suggestion for you is keep a bitterness journal. Why not write down the things that bother you? Set a goal of having at least 3 to 4 annoyances every day that you can write down in your journal. For instance, the person who cut you off in traffic earlier today.
Number 1, Zoom meetings. And everybody in the Zoom meeting. The guy with the nice car parking across 2 parking places. What's funny? Pulled up right next to him.
How about the problem with the copier at work and the person who services the copier and who even bought the copier in the first place and how you hate that copier? Here's another annoyance for you. Maybe you got that old truck and it never starts and it never does what you want it to do and you're just tired of it. And you know what? who needs it anyway? Everything about it bothers you. And you're mad at the manufacturer, you're mad at the person who sold it to you, you're mad at the person who sold you gas so it would keep running. Oh, and here's one last tip on getting yourself to be a more bitter person is when you pray, focus on yourself. God already knows He's great. You don't have to talk to Him about that. Talk to Him about how great you are and about how He needs to do things for you and that He needs to get other people in your life to do things for you. Use Him, manipulate Him. That's a great way to become a more bitter person.
God, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for making me so awesome and so handsome. Please help people be more like me. Amen.
Now, here's the truth. The more bitter that you become, the more your life shrivels up. And while it does take some work to be a thankful person, a grateful person, it's worth it. Because, just as Solomon says, for what is in your heart is what comes out of your heart. He says, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it everything will flow. And so if you are filling your life with gratitude rather than bitterness, with thankfulness rather than complaining, what will happen is that will change your perspective on life. And you'll see God doing things in your life that you didn't recognize that He was doing. And you'll be a better person instead of a bitter person. You'll feel better about yourself instead of bitter about yourself. You know what else happens? Everybody else around you becomes much more attracted to you rather than being repulsed by your bitterness. So let's take a look at what it takes to become a grateful person.
Hey, again, I'm so glad you're watching. And we're getting ready to talk about being grateful, and it's just going to be a powerful message. Now, I do want to interrupt just for a minute. Yeah, I know, me interrupt, haha. But I want to tell you, hey, if you need anything, we're here for you. I would love for you to email us at hello@southcrest.church. And that's if you have questions, or maybe you need support, or maybe you need help. Hey, email us. That's what we're here for. And then next, if you want to help us financially, we would love for you to go to southcrest.church/give. There's a drop down there. You can click on online campus, and that helps us further this ministry of Mosaic. Hey, sit back. Let's get ready to listen about how to be grateful.
All right, so let's talk for just a couple minutes about how to develop an attitude of gratitude, because it's going to take some work. It takes some intentionality. But like I said a few minutes ago, what'll happen, it changes your heart, which is great for you, but also it changes your heart in such a way that other people are drawn towards you instead of being repulsed from you. And that's a great thing, to be in connection with more people. And it also is going to help you in your relationship with God too. So here they are. Here's 4 things to tell you about real quickly. Number 1, determine to be grateful for what you have. Determine to be grateful for what you have. You know, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul writes that godliness with contentment is great gain. And there's a lot of times that we want to become better people. And so we strain and we're like, I got to do this, I got to do something. I'm going to be better. And we don't actually do it that way, but we're trying to figure out, hey, what do I have to do? Well, here's the thing. If you want to gain, all you have to do is remain. Remain in your relationship with Jesus. Now, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, it's going to be really hard to do that. But when you remain close to God through your relationship with Him, through Jesus, you know what happens? You automatically become more content. And you realize that the things that you have are things that God wanted you to have, and that your situation are because the situation God brought about for you, and your relationships are there because those are the relationships that God has for you. Godliness with contentment is great gain. And so stay close to God, Stay content, and you'll find that your life starts moving up and to the right. For the most part, that's what's going to happen. So first of all, determine to be grateful for what you have. Number two, turn your gratefulness into praise, not pride. What do I mean by that? When you realize that there's something in your life that you're thankful for, say, God, I'm thankful that you did this. God, I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my home. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for some food to eat. You know, when I was a little boy, my parents always told me that we should have the blessing before we ate. And so we had this little song that I would sing when I was a little boy, and it really didn't mean anything to me. But later on, when I realized for myself that I could have a relationship with God, a personal relationship with Him, I began to say, you know what, I'm going to stop for just a minute and say, God, thank you for this food to eat. Because you know what? I've traveled outside of the United States at least 70 times. And I've been many places in the world where they don't have food to eat. They don't have plentiful amounts of food. They don't have grocery stores. And so I sit there and go, God, I'm very thankful that I've got something to eat. And I try not to complain about what we have to eat, even when it's Brussels sprouts. So turn your thankfulness into praise rather than pride means this. If I thank God for what's happening in my life, then that's going to be a great thing. If I say, look at what I've done in my life, I accomplished this, I got this job, I got this promotion, I was able to buy this house, it becomes about pride, and bitterness starts sneaking back into my heart. Number three, hold on loosely to things. I like to think of it like this. Have an open hand in your relationship with the Lord, because He's going to give you things, but hold on to those things loosely, because things have a tendency to become idols. Ideas have a tendency to become idols. Relationships have a tendency to become idols. So hold on loosely to those things, because here's what's going to happen sometimes. God is going to give you something, and if you are holding on to it, He can't get it out of your hand, because you've said, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And sometimes what He's going to do is He might pry open your hand to get that thing out of your hand that's become an idol, and that's really painful. You don't want that. So keep an open hand before the Lord. So when He gives you things, you know what happens? He may take something out of your hand, and He almost always replaces it with something better. So keep an open hand. That's part of learning to live with contentment and gratitude. Number four, treasure your relationships. Treasure your relationships. The people that God brings into your life, they may be there for a season. They may be in your life for years and years and years. But those relationships, treasure them, take care of them, forgive one another, love one another, serve one another, take care of one another, honor one another. Treasure your relationships. You know, my youngest son, Jonathan, when he was little, there were these times that it would just drive me crazy sometimes, you know, because he was always really happy or he was really sad. And one of the things when my children were young that we used to like to do, we used to like to go to the fair where we used to live. And so we're at the fair, and honestly, I was just a little frustrated because all my children were young, and it's constantly, but where do they go? Where do they go? It was crowded, and you know, I had 3 children, but only 2 hands, and so I'm always trying to ask Lori, hey, have you got the other one? Or she's saying, hey, have you got the other one? And I was just a little worn out from taking care of them all the time, right? And then all of a sudden, we looked around. I said, hey, where's Jonathan? And Lori goes, I thought you had him. I said, well, I thought you had him. And so we're out there, tens of thousands of people at this huge fair, and he's disappeared. And then it's panic. And and all the aggravation and everything that had gone on that afternoon of keeping up with them, and I'm tired, and look, I just want to go get something, funnel cake or something. Can we just do something fun for me? All of that changed in a minute because all I cared about was him. And then I saw this group of people all standing around in a circle, and I'm like, what in the world is that? And I walked over toward the area was, and my son, Jonathan, was probably 2 years old, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, because he was so mad because he couldn't find where we were, and he was scared. And in that moment, I was so thankful for him, and all the hassle that we had gone through that afternoon, I didn't care about it anymore, because all I said, I got him again. You know what that means? That's a change of perspective. That's a change of perspective. That's what being grateful is all about, a change of perspective. So instead of saying, God, I can't stand my car, it's like, I am so grateful that I have a car so I've got transportation and I can get to the places that I need to be. It's the change of perspective of saying, you know what, my house is way too small. No, check this out. You don't have to pay so much for air conditioning. It's a change of perspective. Means that sometimes when your spouse gets on your nerves, that you're not like, I'm tired of them, I just want to get away from them. No, it means that I'm so grateful that someone loves me and wants to be with me and live with me, and that we have this relationship called marriage. It's being very grateful for that. It's instead of going, God, I can't stand my job, it's like, no, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I have to provide for my family. And instead of saying, hey, you know what? Jesus never does anything for me. It's like, no, stop, hang on a minute. Remember what he did for you. That breath you just took, the Bible says he gave that to you. He laid down his life for you. He died for you. He paid for your sins so that you could have a relationship with him. And so sometimes we get frustrated and say, God, why is everything falling apart in my life? No, there's a reason to that. And although we might not understand his plan, we can trust him, and let's be grateful to him for what he's done for us, because our momentary trials and afflictions might be difficult, but we've got all of forever to be grateful for. And so you're having a bad afternoon, that does not compare to the fact that you've got all of eternity to spend with him. So let's be grateful people. Let's change our perspective, knowing that God is in charge no matter what.
I'm thankful for the people in my life and the people that have been building me up over the years and helping me become a better person.
I'm thankful for coming to America and my family adopting me, being able to go to school and church, making friends too.
I'm grateful for a great group of friends and life group to rely on in trying times.
Hey, I'm really thankful for my family and my really close friends. They really help bring me up and help me get closer to God in my faith, and they help me to pray and read my Bible whenever I can.
I'm thankful for my family, friends, and this lovely church community that has led me to about a 7 out of 10 on my Christ following and my faith with him, and it's been a lovely growth.
I'm thankful for my family for helping me grow more spiritual in my faith, and I'm also thankful for soccer because it's a very fun sport to play, and I love my teammates, my coach, and everything about it.
I'm thankful for Lindy Scarborough because we're both growing our faith with the Lord by reading our Bible together and lighting fire on each other.
Definitely Lori Scarborough. She's always there for me, and she checks in on me about twice a week, just making sure everything's okay.
You know, one of the primary things that keeps people from being grateful is a sense of entitlement. Of course, we talk about that all the time, right? But the sense of entitlement is really simply about the fact that you think that somebody owes you something. And, you know, that's the whole idea that, you know, everybody gets a trophy. There's no winner, there's no loser. And we always say, well, you know, it's those millennials that they're always so entitled, and it's those high school students, they're always so entitled. Well, you know how they got that way? Is that somebody taught them that. So it was previous generations that already felt entitled and say, well, you know, I don't want my kid to be left out. I want my kid to get a trophy and a certificate and a blue ribbon, and I want everybody to feel included because I don't want to be left out, because I feel like, hey, somebody owes me that kind of thing. And so really I think at the heart of it, it's thinking that we are higher up than we really are. You know, I've said for a long time, I think a lot of people think that they're smarter than they really are, and they think they're better looking than they really are. But that's not where we find our sense of worth anyway. And, you know, I guess some other things in particular that really drive this sense of entitlement is that, you know, we say, well, I want it because everybody else has it. And the psychologists call that a bias frequency. It's like when you decide there's a certain kind of dog that you are interested in, a certain breed of dog, and everywhere you look, you see that particular breed of dog somewhere. And you're like, wow, that's what I want, or a kind of car, or a style of clothing and you start noticing it all the time, you're like, everybody has that. I got to have it too. The Bible calls that coveting, saying like, I want something that is not mine. Another thing is, I think that happens is that, we expect people to fix all of our problems, right? In other words, we don't want to take responsibility for the things that we've done that are our fault. We want somebody else to take responsibility for it. We want them to fix those kind of problems. That's what we want to do. Like even when you're driving somewhere and it has nothing to do with anybody else, and something kind of goofy happens while you're driving, and what we want to do is we want to blame it on somebody else and not on us. Like, learn to use the clutch, right? Sort of an interesting thing about gas stations is they used not to be called gas stations. They used to be called service stations, because you would come to the service station and they would ask you, hey, would you like us to fill up your tank? Would you like us to check your oil, tire pressure? I mean, they did all kinds of services for you when you showed up, and people got tired of that, and they say, you know what? I want it now. I want it now. I just want gas. I don't want the conversation. I don't want anything else. I just want it now. So, and speaking of want it now, I do not want to give you my cell phone number, so I'll put no on that, and so then I'll get some gas. And the other thing is, I don't know whether you know this or not, and don't ask me how I know this, but did you know that if you are getting some gas at the gas station, that used to be called a service station, and you're getting some gas, did you know that this hose right here, if you were to leave this end of the hose in your vehicle and drive off, don't ask me how I know this, but did you know that this just quickly disconnects and you can go driving down the road with this hose fully attached to your car? That's an option that maybe you've not considered. But see, here's the thing, is that we want somebody else to take care of our problems, right? So when you drive back to the gas station with the hose attached and they say, hey, what happened? Well, obviously I drove off with the hose in my car, and of course I expect them to fix it, and I'm not going to help them at all. Why would I do that? Just another little interesting fact about gas and gas stations and hoses attached to your car. Okay, so I didn't plan this. It just sort of worked out, but I'm just saying, I'm in a Jeep. There's a Jeep. There's a Jeep. There's a Jeep. Frequency bias right there. No, but here's the thing. If the gas stations, we started having gas stations instead of having service stations because people said, hey, I want it now. You know why we have fast food? Because people say, I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. Don't want to wait. You could have better food, even though I'm getting ready to get some Chick-fil-A. You could have better food at home, and it would cost you less. But sometimes we just say, hey, you know what? I want it now. And the fifth thing that causes us, I think, sometimes to not be grateful people because of our entitlement is very simply this. It's the thing that we say is, I deserve it. You know what? I've had a bad day. I should treat myself. I need a chicken sandwich. I should treat myself. I need some new clothes. I should treat myself. I need to be able to go do something for me, because we feel like that we owe it to ourselves and we deserve it. But there's a passage of scripture in the Bible, and what's going on is there are some people who have leprosy. There's a whole colony of them, right? A group of people have leprosy. Jesus walks up to these group of men. They all have leprosy, terrible disease, and it means your skin and your body is literally dying from the outside in. And he walks up to these men. He heals all 10 of them. All of them just kind of go, hey, yeah, you know what? I deserve that because I've had a terrible disease. And so 9 of them never say another word to Jesus, kind of like, hey, you know what? Maybe they were thinking, God did this to me, and so what I've got to do now is he's done something for me. He owed that to me, and so they didn't even care, and they just left. One person came back. One man comes back and says, thank you. We don't talk about the other 9 people. We talk about the one person who came back. But let's order some chicken. And so what happens is when one man says, thank you, it changes his heart. I'm sure it changes the hearts of people around him, but it also changes his relationship with God. And so when we're grateful people, it affects us in all kinds of ways if we'll learn to be intentionally grateful about the things that happen in our lives, the good and the bad.
In the morning you sing over me. I receive your mercy. Your faithfulness is clear to see. It's like a sunrise, constant every day. Every breath I breathe an invitation to believe you are creating something good. Though this season doesn't tell my story, I know you'll move mountains for me. You're just that good. So I'll give thanks to God when I don't have enough, 'cause He's more than enough, and He knows what I need. So I'll give thanks to God when I don't have enough, 'cause He's more than enough, and He knows what I need. In the silence I choose to believe you're working in the waiting. Oh yeah, though the future isn't clear to me, no, I trust you anyway. Every breath I breathe an invitation to believe you are creating
I hope you enjoyed that message on how to be grateful. I know it spoke to me, especially with what my family's been through over the last couple of weeks. It's been powerful to see the church come together and take care of us, even not being on staff anymore, just to see, hey, they loved us. And I am so grateful for those that have prayed over our family, for those that have brought meals, and those that just text that said, hey, praying and we care. And so I want you to know I am grateful. Kenny and I both are. But I also, hey, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to share this message as much as you can. All you've got to do is click share, and it's going to go out. We could see a whole movement of people being grateful simply because you shared this video. Hey, I really do. Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for those that started these watch parties, that watched together, lived together, hung out together, talked about it. I hope you enjoyed it. Continue talking about it. Let's talk about it online. Start a conversation, and let's have a great week. And we'll see you next week as we have another episode of Mosaic.